The Danube is the most important river in Europe. With its 2,888 kilometers, the Danube connects Western and Eastern Europe, the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. It flows for 588 kilometers through Serbia, and this is just where the river becomes mighty and powerful. Many rivers in Serbia feed the Danube, rivers like the Drava, the Tisa, the Tamiš, the Morava, the Nera, and the Timok. In Vojvodina, the Danube becomes a characteristic plains river. It floods when the water level is high and meanders, creating plenty of river islands, affluents, and ponds, unique oases of nature, the last remaining shelters for many plant and animal species. The Danube is Europe's river of destiny. For centuries, the Danube served as the main transport route, the cradle of culture, and witness to the very first steps of our civilization. This area is where the cultures of Central Europe and the Orient meet. I was born beside a large, powerful river. Only after many years did I realize it had predestined my whole life. I spent my childhood days playing at the riverbank, collecting stones and shells, helping my grandpa fish. The smell of the water, the sun reflecting on the waves, the feel of a wet fishing net. The recently caught fish have forever entered each pore of my life. Eons ago, before humans had even appeared on the earth, almost all of Vojvodina already looked like this, covered with marshlands and ponds. In the far northwest of Serbia, in the upper flow of the Danube, lies an excellently preserved marshy area. These wetlands, occupying roughly 20,000 hectares, include the Karapanja, Monostorsky, and Apatinsky marshlands. Because of its numerous natural treasures, this area has been designated as a protected area, the Upper Danube Special Nature Reserve. Authentic species in the area include the yellow iris, the white and yellow water lily, and rare plant species such as Potonia palustris, Hippurus vulgaris, and Iranthis hyemalis. The moors, moor forests, and marshes of the Upper Danube are distinguished by their original beauty, and since ancient times have been the realm of deer. Herds of hinds and calves usually lie hidden in thick forest during the day, leaving their shelter at dusk to go to pasture. When they feel safe, hinds come to pasture in daytime as well. In the warm spring and hot summer days, hinds seek salvation from the mosquitoes and the heat in shallow marsh waters. Mothers suckle their calves till the beginning of August, the latest, and teach them from their earliest days which plants to eat. It's a rare event and a lucky one to see a deer in the marsh. Thin, strong, and noble, the deer keeps a proud pose. In spring, the deer grow new antlers that are at first covered with skin known as velvet, which the deer removes by rubbing his antlers on tree bark. The life of the local people near the Upper Danube has always been connected to the river, the forests, and the moors. Most of the population in Bački Monoštor are Šokci, a subgroup of Croatians found mostly along the banks of the Danube. Yet there are also Old Hungarian, German, and Serbian families. In the center of the village stands a monumental Roman Catholic church devoted to St. Peter and St. Paul. Built on the same site as the old church of 1752, it is protected as a cultural monument of great importance. The rich ecosystems of the wetland forests and moors along the Vojvodina Danube offer excellent conditions for the reproduction and survival of the deer. Hence the important hunting areas located there. The Apatin, Kamariste, Karađorđevo and Plavna marshlands. Moor and marshland areas provide wonderful conditions for wild boars as well, who enjoy wallowing in the mud and around the moors. The Water City Fortress in Bach is the most well-preserved medieval fortification in Vojvodina. It used to be surrounded by water on all sides and approachable only by drawbridge. The fortress was razed by the Hungarian king Charles Robert Angevin between 1338 and 1342. At that time, the town had 7 towers, and under it the civil settlement or suburbia developed, which was entered through the so-called Pike Gate. Following the Battle of Mohacs in 1526, the town and fort were conquered by the Turks. Today, the fortress is dominated by the renovated dungeon or guard tower, 18 meters high. That tower was used as a lookout and was an important part of the fortress defense system. The Bojani Monastery, devoted to the feast of the presentation of the Most Holy Virgin Mary, lies 12 kilometers from the banks of the Danube. According to the records, the monastery was built by Bogdan, a merchant from Dalmatia. There used to be a spring of healing waters on the exact spot where the church now stands. At that spring, Bogdan, who suffered from an eye disease, prayed to the Virgin Mary and vowed that if healed by the water, he would build a church in her honor. With this faith and hope, he washed his face and his eyesight returned. Bogdan kept his word, and in 1478 he raised the monastery. The present church was built in 1722 by a rich man from Szeged, Mihailo Temeshvarlia. And the paintings were done by a renowned artist of the time, Christopher Jefarovich. Begecka Yama, the Begec Ditch, is a nature park covering 379 hectares, where appear several authentic forest communities of black poplar, almond willow, and white willow. Within the area where the Danube flows through Begecka Yama, about 150 bird species can be found. Mute swans have been nesting in the Begecka Yama for the last 15 or 20 years, and these are one of the main attractions for both tourists and ornithologists. Beneath the water surface, thick braids of leaf stalks and the flowers of various water plants can be seen, in combination with green filamentous algae, rigid hornwort, and Eurasian water milfoil, which create a real underwater jungle. My grandpa was a real fisherman, one of the best. I'll never forget the enormous catfish, which on one particular day he pulled out of the net and brought home, a true giant. Though Grandpa claimed he had caught even bigger catfish, and this one was nothing special, I was very proud of him. That catfish was almost as big as I was, and I dreamt about it for a long time. Going fishing with Grandpa gave birth to my desire to remain there forever, tucked away in my boat on the waves, and to catch the largest of fish, because they are the only ones that count in life. In the South Pannonian Plain, close to the right riverbank of the Danube, rise the slopes of what used to be an island in the Pannonian Sea, but is now the only national park in Vojvodina, Fruška Gora. It stretches over about 25,000 hectares, and its highest peak is named Crveni Čot, 539 meters high. Fruška Gora was declared a national park in 1960. On Fruška Gora, approximately 1,500 plant species can be found. That's over 1/3 of all the flora in Serbia. On the periphery remain vestiges of steppe vegetation, the last oasis for numerous plant remnants and strictly protected plant species, such as this beautiful Pulsatilla grandis. Fruška Gora also reflects the geological past. Here can be found rocks from almost all the geological periods, from the oldest, the Paleozoic, about 500 million years ago, through the Mesozoic, the Neogene, and all the way to the Quaternary. Abundant fossil fauna of the former Pannonian Sea can be found in numerous bluffs of silt clay sediment, stream beds, and other locations in Fruška Gora. Since ancient times, people have mined the mineral resources of Fruška Gora in places such as the Rakovats Cave or the Old Quarry, Beli Maidan, the White Quarry. Stones taken from here were likely used in the construction of the nearby Rakovats Monastery. Fruška Gora is often called Little Athos, or the Holy Mountain, as it has at least 16 Orthodox monasteries, most of which were built in the 16th century. What Studenica Monastery in Kosovo was to the medieval Serbs, for Upper Danube Serbs it was and still is Krušedol Monastery, the mausoleum of despot Đurađ Branković. On August 13, 2009, the Serbian Orthodox Church, the Srem Diocese, and Krušedol Monastery celebrated an important jubilee, 5 centuries of this holy Serbian temple. Hear the words of the Amphilochia, Metropolitan of Montenegro and the Littoral, spoken as he officiated in the hierarchical divine liturgy. Today's convocation is nothing but the continuation of the gathering which began here about a half a millennium ago and has never ceased since. Let this be a place for future generations where the face of God and the glory of our Lord will appear. The place where their souls will eat the bread of life and drink the beverage of immortality. The place of prayers to the holy founders, Mother Angelina and all the others who have found their peace with God right here. In Krušedol Monastery lie the relics of despot Đurađ Branković, as well as those of his mother, Angelina, and his blind father, Stefan Branković. Here also lie the relics of numerous important Serbs, Patriarch Arsenie III Čarnojević, Patriarch Arsenie IV Jovanović Šakabenta, Duke Stevan Šupljicac, Princess Ljubica and King Milan Obrenović. By the role it played in our history, the richness of the monastery treasury, its famous iconostasis, its paintings and other relics, Krušedol Monastery can easily be considered one of the most significant monasteries of Fruška Gora. Novi Sad is the political capital of the autonomous province of Vojvodina and its cultural capital as well, a Serbian Athens. The most prominent landmark of the city is the fortress of Petrovaradin, located on the hill across the Danube from the city proper. The present fortress was built by Austria between 1692 and 1780. The symbol of Petrovaradin Fortress is the clock on the lookout tower. Its hands have actually switched roles. The big hand shows the hours and the small one the minutes, so that boat passengers can more easily tell the time from afar. The fortress was designed by a French architect, Sébastien Vauban, whose extensive range of underground dungeons and galleries, totaling more than 16 kilometers in length, remain largely undiscovered and mysterious to this day. From the fortress, there is an impressive view of the whole city. The good people and fine homemade brandy of Kovilja make it a nice place to live. On Vid's Day, the Day of Light, Kovilja holds its most important festival, the Rakiada, or Plum Brandy Day, which pays homage not only to the plum but to the mulberry as well. In the village center, smoke rises from the cauldrons where people are distilling brandy from mulberries. Kovilja is perhaps the only place in Serbia where mulberry brandy is still made. Near the monastery on the village promenade, goulash and shepherd's stew are being prepared for a couple of hundred people. Music is playing for the traditional round dance, the kolo, and black horses are pulling the carriages in all directions to the pleasure of all present, especially their proud owners. Winter, when the Danube and the moors around it are decorated in white. My grandpa wouldn't let me sail with him. At that time, we children enjoyed the winter magic, the saints' days, and especially the Christmas Yule log. We would drive in our carriages all across the village so that everyone could see us. Then our priest would bless the Yule log in front of the church, wishing the new year to be fertile and fruitful for any and all, and wishing health and wealth to all the people. Christmas Eve dusk would fall slowly, and we would look into the fire and sing the Nativity of Christ and other songs. Right next to the village is a special nature preserve, the Kovilja and Petrovaradin Moor. It occupies a wide wetland on the Danube covering almost 5,000 hectares. Since 1989, this area has been an IBA, Internationally Important Bird Area, and it was also nominated as an internationally important wetland according to the Ramsar Convention. Till now, about 180 bird species have been found there. The presence of the white-tailed eagle, the black stork, the great white heron, the night heron, the small white heron, granada, gray heron, and duck ferruginus give this reserve special value. Of late, the humpback swan has often been spotted as well. The reserve has recorded as many as 443 species of higher plants. Of special importance for the protection of aquatic habitats, the following can be found: white and yellow water lilies, the water fern, Trapa natans, Ultricularia vulgaris, and others. The Covilia petrovarida moor is also home to 25 species of reptiles and amphibians, 46 species of fish, a large number of invertebrates, and also a few types of mammals such as the otter, wildcat, stoat, and weasel. The underwater world of Covilia Moor still hides various secrets. Here we can see wrapped water lily leaves and buds, just getting ready to reach the surface and feel the pleasant effects of the sunlight. Out of the 46 fish species which have been found in the Moor waters, as many as 8 are foreign to this natural habitat. One of these is the American miniature catfish. Originally from North America, it inhabits all the lowland waters of the Danube basin. It lives in schools of individuals of the same age and attacks everything it can overcome and swallow. The sunstroke, or sun carp, was brought to Europe from the southern parts of North America as an aquarium fish due to its unusually attractive looks. Through human negligence, it has spread throughout Europe, seriously endangering many of our native species. Although small in size, this fish is aggressive and predatory. It feeds on any water animal, including the young and the eggs of other fish species. The microcosm contained in a drop of water is a truly amazing world. The organisms and laws existing there are still shrouded in mystery. The protozoans belong to the genus Coleps and are characterized by a barrel body size of about 100 micrometers. They are completely covered with cilia, fast-moving, and feed on the bodily juices of dead organisms. Here you can find a variety of colonial and unicellular algae, for whom the marsh waters provide excellent conditions for reproduction. Situated on the right bank of the Danube, on the slopes of Fruška Gora, Sremski Karlovci has been the Serbian spiritual, cultural and educational capital for centuries. In the Baroque center of the town, around the square with a fountain named for its 4 lions, we find a group of buildings invaluable to Serbian history and culture. The vineyards and an ever-increasing number of cellars, producing really first-class wines, provide the area with a distinctive tourist attraction. This is highlighted during the Karlovac Vintage Festival, or the Ball for the Grapes, as it is popularly known. This event celebrates the beginning of the grape harvest, from which the first new wines, such as the Portugieser, will be produced, and from which next year will appear the Riesling, Bermet, Chardonnay and other Fruška Gora wines. Cattle farmers from Kovilja and Gardanovci say that Krčedinska Island is the last oasis of peace and beauty, not only in Serbia, but throughout the whole course of the Danube. This is the place where ever since ancient times the marsh farmers have let hundreds of horses, cattle, pigs and donkeys run free in a natural setting of old willows and sandy shores. It's a real pleasure to see horses freely racing among stands of 100-year-old willow trees with clouds of dust rising behind. carefree childhood years passed quickly away. It seems like only yesterday I was fishing with Grandpa and playing on the river. Now I am standing in front of this magnificent temple on the threshold of a new stage in my life, which I am about to share with the one person closest to me, who knows best how to feel, understand, and love. In this holy place we say the words that will bind us together our whole lives. We were married in Krushadol Monastery when I was 26. For centuries, the Serbian capital, Belgrade, formed and grew on the banks of two mighty rivers, the Danube and the Sava. The pearl of the White City is Kalemegdan Fortress, whose earliest parts date from the 1st century AD. The name Kalemegdan derives from the Turkish words kale, fortress, and jewel, fight. In its long and bloody history, Kalemegdan has been destroyed more than 40 times. The unique atmosphere of Belgrade is created by cheerful, busy people who still find enough time for moments of relaxation and fun. Belgrade's culture was created by mixing 5 centuries of European influence with the sophistication of the Orient, offering a rare and unique experience to the visitor. At the confluence of the Tamish and Danube rivers stand 2 lighthouse towers on the left bank of the Danube, exactly at the 1,154th kilometer. This is the only pair of lighthouses on the entire length of this great European river. The lighthouses have stood there in their original form since they were built in 1909. Sailing along the Danube, we arrive under the walls of Smederevo Fortress. It was built between 1426 and 1430, defined as the last stronghold of the Serbian despots. With its 10.5 acres, the fortress was one of the greatest in Europe. Its role was to withstand the attacks of the Ottoman Empire, preventing their penetration into the heart of Central Europe. Perhaps the despot Brankovic, watching the Danube from his arch-shaped window, realized the inevitability of human transience and the inability of man to stop time. In all of Serbian history, full of tragic figures, there is hardly any that can be compared in their sorrows with the unfortunate despot Brankovic, whose sons were blinded as hostages in Turkish slavery, and a daughter presented to the Sultan for his harem. As if I was followed by a lucky star or some positive higher force, my dream to live and work on the river that I cherished since I was a boy came true. The Istrani One has been my work and my home for many years. Many people would envy me for working on this boat on the Danube. They said they would gladly swap jobs with me and do it for no pay. crew looked after the maintenance of the signal pots on the entire navigable flow of the Danube in Serbia, all 588 kilometers. I enjoyed my work, as I was always on the water, in the fresh air and sun, and I discovered many fantastic places which regular mortals never have the chance to see. Not everything went according to plan. There were some tough times, especially in winter when the Danube is covered in ice and we were frozen by the cold wind, the Koszova. The southeastern part of the Pannonian Plain, Banat, is the largest European continental sandy terrain, covering almost 35,000 acres. This area, Deliblatska, has been declared a special nature reserve. It is the largest remaining oasis of the sand, steppe, forest and wetland vegetation that once dominated the Pannonian lowlands. One of the most important centers of biodiversity in Serbia, and the most important steppe area still with us. Podolian cattle, which originate directly from the European wild cow, are also bred in the sandy terrain area of Deliblato. The lush flora, with over 900 species, subspecies and varieties, is rich in remnants and endemics. Among the species whose only habitat in Vojvodina and Serbia is here are the Banat peony and the steppe peony, noted for their exceptional beauty. Deliblatska is also known for its game, especially deer and wild boar. The Banat peony, a much endangered species that is fast disappearing, is included in the Red Book of Flora of Serbia. In the sandy terrain of Deliblato, there is just one small population of this species. The Deliblatska Sandy Terrain Nature Reserve includes the part of the Danube that encompasses the Dubovacka marshland, Swan Inlet, Chibuklia Island, and the confluence of the Karash River. These wetlands are rich in fish hatcheries and significant as well as a meeting place for masses of wintering birds. In 1989, Deliblatska was declared an important bird area, and in 2007, the area was declared an internationally significant wetland for the Ramsar Convention. Here can be found a significant meeting place for wading birds, the nesting grounds for some of the most endangered species on the planet, and the strongest migratory aquatic bird station in Serbia. Rich and varied flocks of aquatic birds, more than 40,000 specimens in all, gather every year on the waters of Swan Pane. This is the most important wintering waterfowl in Serbia, and one of the most important in all the Balkans. Swan Pane and the Danube are the habitat of the pond turtle Emys orbicularis, an endangered species protected by law. When it comes out of hibernation in the springtime, the pond turtle is extremely hungry. It is highly predatory and eats many different animals: frogs, tadpoles, insects, larvae, mollusks, fish, and even river crabs. The terrapin is a strictly protected species on the IUCN Red List. It is strictly forbidden to disturb the terrapin, to kill it, or to violate its nest. In the village of Ram, on the right bank of the Danube, the walls of the Turkish fortress of the same name still stand, built on the ruins of ancient and Byzantine foundations. Ram Fortress is located on a cliff that descends to the northeast towards the Danube. It is assumed that the city was erected opposite the Harem Fortress on the other side of the river, of which nothing remains. After the Turks had conquered our region, they next aimed to take over the Kingdom of Hungary and the Pannonian Plain. In 1483, the Turkish Sultan Bayezid II, in order to protect the right bank of the Danube, renovated and strengthened the existing fortification for the purpose of fighting with firearms. Thus, the Ram is one of the oldest artillery fortifications in Serbia. Riverboat Istrani 1, we were all one big happy family. In our free time, we used to catch fish, chat and drink coffee, sometimes laced with a few shots of strong homemade brandy. Yet the thing I shall never forget is the taste of freshly prepared fish on the boat, whether it was boiled or fried. I also have fond memories of numerous adas, islands on the Danube, with their wonderful untouched wilderness. The Danube, near the charming villages of Veliko Gradište and Silver Lake, is known as a fisherman's paradise. In these waters, the king of fish rules, the catfish, and the locals use a unique method, buchka, to catch them. In buchka, fishermen hit the water surface with a noise-making tool called a buchk, producing a unique sound that irritates the catfish. The catfish, annoyed by this buka or noise, approaches the sound only to find a bait on the hook waiting for him, which he greedily swallows. In this part of the Danube, with skill, knowledge, and a little luck, capital specimens of catfish exceeding 50 kilos can be caught. The pearl of this region is Silver Lake, 14 kilometers long and situated in beautiful natural surroundings. the very entrance to Đerdap Gorge, is Golubats town, a medieval fortress with 10 towers and 2 school gates. Golubats is first mentioned in Hungarian records dating from 1335. It was part of the state of Prince Lazar until Bayezid I took it in 1389, after the Battle of Kosovo. The last stage of city construction was done by the Turks, who strengthened the towers and added a low artillery tower that controlled the port and protected the harbor. The fortress marks the entrance to the longest and largest river gorge in Europe, about 150 kilometers long. This area was declared the Iron Gate National Park back in 1974. Lying on the border with Romania, it covers 64,000 hectares. After passing through Big Chasm, we reach the Small Chasm. Our eyes stop at the largest carved figure in Europe, a 10-meter-high head of Decibel, the former ruler of Dacia, now Romania. The Lepenski Vir archaeological site is the oldest known urban settlement in all of Europe, dating back to around 6500 BC. The unique stone statues and idols are particularly important, representing sublime fish-like creatures from the river, the deities of the Lepenski Vir civilization. Traiana is a Latin inscription dedicated to the Roman Emperor Trajan, carved in the rock between the years 100 and 103 AD, during his operations against the Dacians. The Đerdap I hydropower plant is the 5th largest in the world. It was built between 1964 and 1972 and is 1,278 meters long. The dams were jointly constructed by the former Yugoslavia and Romania. Not far from this spot, on the 864th kilometer of the Danube, stand the remains of one of the pillars of Trajan's bridge, and a dam named Đerdap II. After this, the Danube finally leaves Serbia, flowing slowly towards the Black Sea. It has been many years, but I am still here on the water. I am reminiscing the young boy in me. My first moments spent on the river, the first fish I ever caught. The sun rises, the feel of white fish, the wind in my hair, all are deeply embedded in every pore of my soul. I am totally taken up with beauty, with happiness, living the life I want, free and cheerful. Like a summer dream, life passes so quickly. There is just one life for me on this beautiful blue planet. Life on the river, with no return.